Is the Samsung Galaxy S9 worth buying in 2022? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, and this is the Samsung Galaxy S9. Now the S9 at this point is certainly not a new device. In fact, it's been out for quite a while. But at this point, is it worth going for one that's used, refurbished, or renewed? That's really the big question. Because you can get an S9 for a really good deal at the moment, which is always changing, of course, especially as the phone gets older and older. But should you go for an older flagship device like this one, or go for a newer mid-range or budget phone that goes for about the same price? And it really depends on how you use your smartphone, and hopefully this video helps make that decision a bit clearer. Now the Galaxy S9 is one phone in the S9 series from Samsung. They also launched the Galaxy S9 Plus. So if you do want a version of this phone that gives you some bonus features and also a bigger display, then maybe consider going for the S9 Plus. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to be talking about the S9. Now with the Samsung Galaxy S9, we're getting a 5.8-inch display. It's certainly a bit smaller by today's standards, but the display is Super AMOLED at 1440p. So extremely high resolution here for the display, and colors look fantastic. The display is very vibrant, very detailed, so it's especially good for content consumption. We're getting a PPI of 570, and we're getting an 18.5:9 aspect ratio. It's pretty incredible how high of resolution this display is, but with that 18.5:9 aspect ratio, we're not quite getting the same form factor that we get nowadays with 20:9 aspect ratio phones. So the overall proportions here are a little bit shorter and wider, but it really comes down to what you prefer. I know that one reason why a lot of the newer devices feature a taller form factor is because the way that we use our phones now is a lot different from how we used them even several years ago. Nowadays, people primarily use their mobile devices for consuming content, whether it's scrolling on a social media feed, looking at their various emails, reading articles, doing different things like that. In situations like that, you want a taller display because in theory, you don't have to scroll quite as much to see, the entirety of a social media feed or to see most of an article on a website. So that is something to keep in mind. That being said though, I still think the design is pretty good here with the phone, and it doesn't really look outdated either, considering that this device is pretty old at this point. Now the front-facing camera here with the phone is housed in the upper section of the device, and that is an 8-megapixel front-facing camera. But you probably noticed though, there's no notch, there's no hole punch either for a front-facing camera, so the front-facing camera is up in this upper bezel here, and then we have a bottom bezel that's about the same size as well. So definitely we don't see a design like this too often nowadays, but I still feel like the phone does look pretty current and it doesn't really look outdated necessarily. Now the device comes in a variety of different storage configurations. This is the 64GB variant of the phone, and it does feature microSD card expansion. So it is nice that you can expand beyond the current amount of storage that is offered with the device. Now with the S9, we are getting wireless charging, which is great. I'm a big fan of that. And we're also getting a variety of different methods for getting into the phone. So we have a fingerprint sensor on the back of the device. I'll give that a try right now. There we go, very quick. We'll try that one more time. So very fast there with that fingerprint sensor. And then we also have face unlock, and we have an iris scanner. So those are two additional methods for getting into the phone. Now nowadays, we don't really see iris scanners built into any device, so it's pretty much a Samsung thing that they did for a number of years before giving up on it and moving on. But if you really want a phone that has an iris scanner, then at least you can go with the Galaxy S9 as a potential device. And then of course, facial recognition is always great to have as well. So I definitely prefer this approach the Samsung is giving us here with the S9, and of course many of the other devices that have come out since, allowing us to have multiple methods for accessing the phone. Whereas with Apple, in certain generations they only had Touch ID, and then now they have Face ID. But I really wish Apple would take a page from Samsung's playbook here and give us both. Give us a fingerprint sensor and give us Face Unlock at the same time. And I really like how, even though Samsung was doing this many years ago, they've always tended to do this and give us many different methods to access the phone because of course everybody has different preferences. So shout out to them for that. Now with the Galaxy S9, we have just one camera on the back of the phone, and it is a 12 megapixel camera. Now despite just having one camera, we do actually get portrait mode here with the device, which is great. You can, of course, take photos with the standard camera, like you can see right here. Then from there, we can go over to the More tab, and we have tons of different options here, but live focus is one of them, which does the same thing as portrait mode. Okay, never mind. They must have taken that out in a software update because I have this phone updated to the newest version of the software and I can only get live focus to work for the front-facing camera, which actually does look pretty good. So I suppose if you do want to get portrait mode, then you probably won't be able to use it on the Galaxy S9, so you might want to go for an S10 or an even newer device. But if you want live focus with the front-facing camera, then you do for sure have it with the Galaxy S9. So it is a little bit strange, wasn't expecting that. Nonetheless, good to know. Now with this device, we're getting 4 gigabytes of RAM and the Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 processor. Now I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 5 here with the phone, and I'll show you the scores right now from that test. But essentially, I got a single core score of 485 and a multi-core score of 2118. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of whether or not the Galaxy S9 is going to be a performance upgrade for you. And I guess while we're at it, let's take a closer look too and see what video recording options we have as well. So for the front-facing camera, it looks like we have a maximum resolution of 2560 by 1440. And then for the main camera on the rear of the phone, it looks like we have a maximum resolution of 3840 by 2160 at 60 FPS. So it is pretty cool that we do have 4K video recording at 60 frames per second with the rear camera on the Galaxy S9. So we definitely do get quite a few options when it comes to taking photos and videos with the Galaxy S9, but we're also missing some other features that I know that many people are a big fan of, such as having an ultra wide angle camera. So no ultra wide camera with the S9, just one camera here on the back. And in general, the abilities that it does have are a bit lacking compared to some newer devices that are out nowadays. Another shortcoming of the Galaxy S9 definitely has to be the battery capacity. So with this phone, we're getting a 3000 milliamp hour internal battery. So that's a bad thing for 2 different reasons. The first reason is because it's a small battery to start with. The second reason is because as time goes on, especially if you're getting this phone used or renewed or refurbished, as the battery gets older and older, it's going to have a harder and harder time at holding a charge. And considering that the battery is already pretty small to begin with, those issues of not having great battery life are going to be even bigger and more noticeable with a battery that can't even hold a 100% charge. Now, it doesn't matter which company you go with. You can get a phone from Apple, you can get a device from OnePlus, whatever company you end up going with, it doesn't have to be Samsung. Any phone battery is going to hold less and less of a charge as time goes on. So since we're already starting with a battery that is questionably small, it's going to be even a bigger issue with an older used phone or renewed phone if you happen to not get a brand new Galaxy S9, which again, I'm pretty sure at this point, you can't even get one brand new if you wanted to, nor do I even recommend it. But now that we've gone over many of the major features of the Samsung Galaxy S9, let's take a closer look at the hardware here. So again, very premium hardware overall. We're getting a metal band running around the sides of the phone. We're getting a glass back on here, glass up front, of course, a curved display. Taking a look at the left side of the phone, we have volume up, volume down, and the Bixby button. Then on the right side of the phone, we have the power button. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone, in the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. And then on the bottom of the phone, the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, microphone, and speaker. Then on the back of the phone, we have the camera module, fingerprint sensor, flash, and heart rate sensor. Another thing I wanted to point out as well is that I do not like how close the fingerprint sensor is to the camera module. It's very easy, especially if you're not looking at it directly, to accidentally put your finger on the camera module instead of the fingerprint sensor. And obviously by doing that, you're not going to be able to unlock the phone, but also you risk smearing or smudging around the camera itself, which is going to result in you having photos that don't look nearly as good. So that is definitely a downside that you'll want to keep in mind here. Another thing too is that I do like this color, and I do like in general how the phone looks, but with it being a reflective back, it is going to pick up a lot of fingerprints. So I'm not fond of that, that's for sure. So if you do not like having fingerprints on the back of your device, then either consider getting a case for this phone or just getting a completely different phone. But this is the Samsung Galaxy S9 in 2022. I'm really curious to know what you think about the device. Would you consider getting this? Is it a little bit too old at this point? Really curious to know what you think. Do you currently own a Galaxy S9? And if so, did you get it recently? Or have you had it for a while and you're considering going for something else? I'm really curious to know what you think. But this is Kevin here. This is the Samsung Galaxy S9 in 2022. And I will see you in the next video. Take care.